Yeah, okay, we're recording. All right, so now we're recording. Okay, so on this, and again, just to backtrack so that this is on the recording, this is on the additional clause addendum draft. This is that new draft that will be coming out in June this year that Charlie was talking about yesterday. So everything else on here is the same. They just updated the date, of course, on there. And then they go to this appraisal shortfall clause. And it says appraisal shortfall in the event the premises fail to appraise for at least the purchase price and any appraisal required by lender, buyer agrees the buyer's down payment shall be increased in the amount equal to the difference between the appraised value and the purchase price, provided that the difference does not exceed X amount of dollars. So that protects your buyer from having to come up with a ton of extra money. Buyer and seller agree that if the difference between the appraised value and the purchase price exceeds the amount of money set forth in line 40, seller is not obligated to lower the purchase price, and the buyer has 5 days after notice of the appraised value to cancel the contract and receive a return of the earnest money, or the appraisal contingency shall be waived unless otherwise prohibited by federal law. So it says that the seller does not have to reduce their purchase price, but it still is an option. At that point, if the seller does want to adjust their purchase price, then you can just do an addendum and create the adjustment in purchase price on it so that you can get back into compliance at that point, or so that everything is set for. So this is if the appraisal comes in shorter than your purchase price. So let's say you have a purchase price of $500,000 and the appraisal comes in at $450,000, and you said you'd protect $30,000 in there. So that line 40 would say $30,000. So if it came in under 470, you wouldn't have to continue on, and the seller doesn't have to drop their price. But let's say the seller is willing to, come up with he's willing to drop his price down, and your buyer is willing to come up maybe a little bit more. You can go ahead and continue on if you can come to a purchase price agreement and everybody signs off on the addendum. So I just wanted to cover that piece there. And then I'm going to go into transaction desk, and we'll get into the other documents that we wanted to talk about.
Hey, Todd, quick question while you're doing that. Have you gone over yet the new ER?
I have not. I would be happy to do that one today too.
Oh, yeah, if you have time, because I just, it just popped up in my transaction desk. You know how when you've got your template set up, right, in transaction desk, and you go to start a new transaction. Well, if it's been updated, it doesn't load. They used to notify you somehow that.
I thought that was I thought that was the thing, was that they would automatically update the form. If the form got updated, that it would automatically update. I didn't think that we would have to redo our templates again.
So I think it used to. I think, maybe, and I can't remember if it was before transaction desk, but I just noticed, the last few months that it literally just doesn't show up in your transaction.
Right.
Patty, this is Dee Dee. We used to be able to get a sheet with all of the changes, and I guess they haven't made one of those this year, this change.
Well, it would be helpful if, number one, like it came up, when it comes up, it's been changed, or or at least notify you, as opposed to just not loading it, because sometimes it's a document that you don't necessarily, it doesn't jump out at you. Like quite frankly, they updated the buyer advisory and it just didn't load into my transaction. And, I have so many documents signed, I just missed it, so then I had to go back later. And I thought it was funny. That's what really brought it to my attention, is that it just didn't load instead of notifying you in some way. So anyway, if you ever have an opportunity to say anything about it.
Yeah, I think that's because it used to when we first switched over to transaction desk, it automatically updated the forms, and now it's not automatically updating the forms. So now right. It's doing what Zip form used to do, which would just remove it from your template, and it just wasn't there. And
right.
That's what this was designed to do. This was designed to update and to keep us all, current with all of our forms. So
right.
We need to have a conversation with someone about that and make sure that they're on top of that and trying to figure out why it's not updating like it's supposed to.
I guess that transaction desk would be AAR then, wouldn't it?
I believe so, yeah. It's, well, we're gonna have to go to, whether it's through Lone Wolf or whether it's going to AAR or somebody that can go through it and make sure that they fix whatever they changed so that it updates the form rather than just removing it. All right, so we're gonna go through the ER real quick. The exclusive right to sell. So yeah, if you're looking for it, it's under residential listing contract exclusive right to sell. So that's when you're looking for it, that's the actual name of the contract. So the top part of it didn't change any in there. The property piece didn't change any in there. Nothing changed in that I noticed anyway. Legal description is still there. The listing price and terms. This piece is still the same in there. It's just that it explains that it's a contract and it's an irrevocable right to rent or to sell and rent both, which whatever you're doing for the client. And the owner acknowledges that signing more than one ER in other form of listing contract or the same term could expose the owner to liability for additional commissions. So if the seller signs ER forms with 2 or 3 different brokerages, they could actually be liable for paying 2 or 3 different commissions on the property. The price shall be for the sale or for rent. That hasn't changed either. Plus, in the case of a rental, all applicable lease or rental transaction privilege taxes or such other price and terms are accepted by the owner. The term, again, it's this. I don't think really changed anything on there. It starts at one place and shall expire at 11:59 at the end date, Mountain Time. That's kind of a piece there that gets overlooked, I think, sometimes, though, is this Mountain Standard Time. Because it's like right now we're not on Mountain Standard Time. Right now our Arizona time, we're on Pacific. So if we look at this actually would mean that it expires at 10:59 on that date. So it's a little bit, it can be a little bit of a tricky one there. But hopefully you never have a listing that expires on 11 o'clock on a night and you get an offer a little, a half hour later or whatever.
Todd, let's talk about something on that.
Yeah.
So let's say you're having paperwork signed today, okay? And you're going to go coming soon next Thursday.
Yep.
And then active on Saturday. How are you advising everyone to complete this form?
So what I do with everybody is up here when you're starting your start date and your end date. Your start date, I always want my start date to be today, because what happens if the minute I leave this house,
right, to talk to somebody else, right?
Somebody wants to buy the house. I want to be the one that gets paid for it. So whether or not I'm putting it in the MLS today, I want to make sure that that says today. And then, expires whatever you're doing, whether it's, a 30-day, 60-day, 90-day, 1-year agreement, whatever it is. But I always want that date to be today. That date should match the date that your client is signing this contract. So then when I go through and get back to the last page here, when you've got the open area on the back, the verbiage that I always use in this open area is that, oops, get the right fingers on the right keys. I put that in all of my listings there. Listing to become active in the MLS upon mutual agreement between seller and listing agent. And I do that for a number of reasons. But the big reason is so that, yes, I have an active listing agreement, but I'm not obligated to make this go active in the MLS right away. I don't even have to put it in as a coming soon right away. We can do that. And if we want to, you can add verbiage in there to be entered as coming soon on such and such date, and become active upon mutual agreement. That way you're not setting yourself to a date. So if something were to occur where you and your client decide, well, let's wait for a few more days before we make it go active, you don't have to do an addendum to change and make you compliant with what your contract states here. So that I always stick just that line in every one of my listings so that I have the freedom to withhold it from putting it in the MLS as active. And in this case, what I would do is I would put it in the MLS and put it in as inactive and leave it as an inactive status until I was ready to either put it as coming soon or ready to go active. Does that kind of answer
Yes.
what?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right. So we're going to go back up here to where we were. So you've got your property information, you've got your what you're going to do, what sale or rent, you've got your time for when your listing is active. Capacity owner, any party that the owner designates to act on their behalf warrants that they have the legal capacity, full power, and authority to enter into this agreement, deliver marketable title to the premises, and consummate the transaction completed hereby. So, and I've had people ask this as well. If you have, let's say you have somebody who passes away and they are the legal owner of the house, and the daughter or somebody else is going to be the one that sells the property, they always ask, well, who should I put on this contract? Who is the party between? Well, the owner or the seller is who the legal owner and seller is of the house. But then who signs the document is who is going to be legally authorized to sell the house at that point. So you can have a different name as to who the seller is as to who is signing on the property. Just the same way as if you had if you were to have an LLC or a corporation or something like that, you would put the corporation name as the seller and you would have the signer as the person who was the authorized signer for that corporation or LLC. So that's kind of what I think what that capacity refers to there. Modification, this agreement may be modified only in writing.
Todd, the other thing that I've done is, like, for instance, I have a couple who the husband died, and I just wanted to make sure that it didn't need to go through probate or anything like that. So I sent the address to Justin at Legendary Title and just asked her to please confirm that, the wife had the power to sell, that it didn't have to go through probate. She just confirmed it. So that was one more thing that I could say to, the owner, that I've already confirmed that, you're all set to sell. It doesn't need to be probated or anything like that. Just something I just wanted everybody to
That's a great
know.
point. Another service that Justin can do for us. That, like you said, that's done in 24 hours. She'll get back to that. Confirm that yes, if you're on the right track, or if there is something else that you're probably going to need in order to make this thing transfer title. Good point, Patty. Equal housing opportunity, it just goes through and talks about the equal housing pieces in here. Race, religion, color, sex, handicap, familial status, national origin, sexual orientation, and gender identity, that you can't discriminate based on any of those things. So this is, it's very important that the seller understands that you are held to the equal housing opportunity laws. I did have one where I actually was doing a rental for a person who was not abiding by the fair housing laws, and I had to actually terminate my contract with them because you don't want to lose your license just over your client not obeying the Fair Housing Act. It can be a very unpleasant conversation, but it's much better to have that unpleasant conversation than for you to get fined or lose your license. Compensation for the rental or sale of the premises are not set by any association or board of realtors or multiple listing service. The compensation payable for the sale or rental of the premises is negotiated between broker and owner. All funds are to be in U.S. currency. I can see where this might actually change sometime in the future with cryptocurrency coming in as much as it is now. There may be at some point in the future where they may have to change this to add that in. But that piece right there really is important to put in, because it's not saying that, even though Berkshire Hathaway is we're a full service brokerage and we are not a discount brokerage, and our personal company policy is that we take listings at 6%. And we only go down from that on exception if we absolutely have to, but that's our company policy. But it's not a set amount that has to be paid. It is still a negotiable rate. Owner agrees to compensate broker and cooperating broker, if any, as follows. If you're getting a retainer fee, you can actually put a retainer fee in there, payable to broker for consultation, research, and other services. Now that money would be really, it's non-refundable. So if your client agrees to pay you that amount of money, some people are doing a retainer fee to help them, make sure that they're not going to get stuck paying for a lot of marketing costs, things like that. So you can actually add a fee into there if you want to make sure that you're covered for any marketing or anything like that. So if your client does decide that they don't want to go forward, after you've had pictures taken and that kind of, any other costs, you can get it recuperated there. Commissions, if broker produces a ready, willing, and able purchaser or tenant in accordance with this agreement, or if a sale or rental of the premises is made by owner or through any other broker or otherwise during the terms of this agreement, owner agrees to pay the broker a total commission of, for the sale, X% or the gross sale price, or a dollar amount if you're doing a dollar amount instead of a percentage. That's the total amount. That's the amount that is being paid out to both brokers, and then it splits it out later on. So that first line there, 39, that's the total amount of commission. So that would be 6% or more, hopefully all the time.
So the whole producing a ready, willing, and able buyer then?
Yep.
What happens if you get a full price offer? Isn't that a ready, willing, and able purchaser in accordance with the agreement? And then the seller doesn't want to sell.
Yeah.
I know this is an age-old argument, but
Yep.
the language is still there in this one.
Exactly.
What's the question? What's the question?
If you as a buyer's agent produce a ready, willing, and able buyer who produces, gives a full price contract. So it says if the broker produces a ready, willing, and able purchaser or tenant, or if a sale or rental of the premises is made by the owner through any other broker during the term of this agreement, owner agrees to pay the broker a total commission. So if you produce a ready, willing, and able buyer, what Stephanie's question is if you have the buyer and they give a full price offer on a property, doesn't this mean that they should have to pay you a commission? If the seller decides not to sell, could you still come back after them and say, hey, you agreed by this agreement that if I brought you a ready, willing, and able buyer, that you would pay a commission? So that's a great question. And I think it's one that will probably never really fully be satisfied. But according to the terms of the contract, I can see how another broker would say, hey, I brought you a ready, willing, and able buyer. Just because your seller no longer wants to sell, that doesn't mean that I'm not due my money. I think the real piece of this, though, is that you have to have a signed purchase contract in order to a ratified purchase contract by all parties in order to have that ready, willing, and able, and everything is in agreement at that point. And then if your seller backs out, I think at that point, then yes, the buyer's broker definitely would have a case to go after the seller and say, hey, we did everything we were supposed to. Just because you've now changed your mind, that doesn't mean that you get out of this scot-free. You still owe us a commission. But I think that's really what the deal is that you've got to have a ratified contract in order to earn a commission. All right, so sale gross, additional broker commission. So if there's any bonus commissions or anything like that you want to throw in there, that's where you would want to put that. Cooperating brokers, that's in here, you would put how much you're giving to the other side. For us, we're always going to put 3% in there. If you take a discount on your commission, you need to get that approved before you discount what you're giving to the buyer's agent. The buyer's agent is always going to be due 3% unless you get approval. Or X amount of dollar to a buyer's broker who represents the interest of the buyer and not the interest of owner in a transaction. Any such cooperation shall not increase the total commission payable by the owner. So they don't owe more commission. Rental. So if you're doing a rental piece of it, you can actually separate it at how much you're going to do for sale and how much you're going to do by rental for a rental. Cooperating broker for a rental. This is where I think some of this terminology has changed on this form as compared to the way it was before. It just says the broker intends to cooperate with all of the brokers except when not in owner's best interest and to offer compensation the amount of X% of the gross rental amount as calculated for the entire term of the lease, or a flat dollar amount if the tenant's broker who represents the interest of the tenant and not the interest of the owner in a transaction, or any such cooperation shall not increase the total commission payable by the owner. And that also has in here if you're doing a rental renewal. So if you can actually have a renewal piece in here. So if the tenant renews their lease, that the owner would actually owe a renewal commission as well. And again, that's percentage or dollar amount of the gross rental amount. And it's due within 5 days of the rental renewal of extension. So that's another piece in there that says, okay, it's due within 5 days. It doesn't mean you can wait 60 days in order to pay that out. Purchased by tenant if during the terms of any rental of the premises, including renewals or holdovers, or within X days after the rental's termination, any tenant or his heirs, executors, or assigns shall buy the premises from owner. The sale commission described in section 4 shall be deemed earned and payable to the broker. So if you have somebody that ends up, if the tenant ends up buying the property within X number of days after the rental termination, then you as the listing agent want to get paid the commission on that you would set forth up here in the sale piece of it. So even if you're just doing a rental of a property, you may want to make sure that you put something in up here as far as if this property sells, I still want to get paid a commission on it, just so you can protect yourself. Because if you leave this blank and that the tenant buys the property, you have no recourse to go back and say, well, you owe me a commission on this because the tenant bought the place. If you didn't put that in there, you have no recourse on it. Cooperating broker dispute. In the event a dispute arises between the broker and any cooperating brokers regarding payment of commission, owner shall not revoke or seek to amend compensation previously offered. Any compensation dispute between brokers shall be resolved after the close of escrow in accordance with the realtor's dispute resolution system or as otherwise agreed. So that just says that you're not going to let commissions are not going to get in the way of letting a transaction close. Withdrawn and canceled listings. The same amount of sale or rental commission shall be due and payable to the broker if, without the consent of the broker, the premises is withdrawn from this agreement, otherwise withdrawn from sale or rental is rented, transferred, or conveyed by owner through any other broker or otherwise. So if they decide to withdraw, the same amount of sale or rental commission shall be due, even if they decide to withdraw their listing and you have a contract in place. Them just because they withdraw or cancel this listing, if you have a contract in place and it sells or rents, you still get paid your commission.
So Todd, I'm sorry, can I ask a quick question? I kind of missed something you said earlier. Oops, hold it. Something you said earlier about a ratified contract. So if a seller, if you present, let's say a full price offer, what did you say about a ratified contract?
In order to earn a commission, you have to have a ratified sales contract. So just because you present an offer on a property does not mean that you are due a commission. You actually have to have an executed contract in order to have the authority to go after commission.
Okay. And then the other thing is that, so I don't usually recommend that my landlords take, for instance, a 2-year lease because, you know, as we all know, that really just benefits the tenant, not the landlord, because the landlord is stuck with a 2-year lease.
Right.
If, you know, they execute a 2-year lease, however, the tenant, their exposure is just their security deposit. I mean, obviously they can be reported and, you know, they could go after them, but the bottom line is, so I always like to put in the MLS that a commission is only going to be paid on a 12-year, I'm sorry, a 12-month lease. I mean, but I just had the situation where the landlord wanted a 2-year lease and the tenant wanted a 2-year lease. So obviously then you're obligated to pay on a 2-year lease.
Right.
But I have seen other agents put in that they're only going to pay 12 months.
Regardless of the term of the contract, if it's a 5-year lease, they're only going to pay the commission off of the first year.
Right. So we should just keep that in mind. My point is to everybody is we should just keep that in mind when we should have that discussion with the landlords when we're executing as to what they want, you know, long term. If they do want more than 12 months, you need to have that discussion with them. So go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's a great point there. Is they need to understand the ramifications. If they're deciding they want to take a 2-year lease, they're going to owe a commission. based on a 2-year term. So it's going to be a good hefty chunk that comes out. And if something were to happen, 6 months down the road, if the tenant, bails on them and leaves them, they paid commission out for 2 years.
Ready to get up, guys?
See it a little bit.
For somebody that was only there for 6 months, they only collected. All right. Payment from escrow or rent. Owner instructs the escrow company, if any, to pay all such compensation to broker by check, wire transfer, or certified funds as a condition of closing or upon cancellation of the escrow, and irrevocably assigns the broker to the extent necessary. Money payable to owner at the closing or cancellation of escrow. Broker is authorized to deduct compensation owed to broker from any rent or other monies received by broker or on owner's behalf. So that authorizes the escrow company or the broker, whoever's handling the funds, to withdraw the commission from the total amounts to be received by the seller. After the expiration of this agreement, the same commission as appropriate shall be payable if sale or rental is made by owner or to any person to whom the premises has been shown, or with whom owner or any broker has negotiated concerning the premises during the term of the agreement within X number of days after the expiration of the contract. So, Patty, what is your general feel on how many days after expiration do you throw in there? She might have taken that phone call, so she's not listening.
Oh, I put 60.
60?
Yeah.
Steph puts 90. So again, this is totally up. It's between you and the owner / landlord as how many days after expiration. Some people feel like, if they can't close it out within 30 days, then that's fine. I don't deserve to be paid out of it. But yeah, I think 60 to 90 are is really quite reasonable to put in there, so that you can kind of hold people up from trying not to pay you commission, because there are people that will do that will not accept an offer and wait for this thing to expire, and then they'll wait, and 30 days later they'll go ahead and accept the offer that they were negotiating with, so that they can remove you from the situation. So I think it's better to try to tie them up a little bit longer as well, to make sure that they can't just hold this out and not pay you a commission. Failure to complete. If completion of a sale or rental is prevented by default of owner or with the consent of the owner, the entire sale or rental commission as appropriate shall be paid to broker by owner. If any earnest deposit is forfeited for any other reason, owner shall pay broker equal fee to the lesser of 1/2 of the earnest deposit or the full amount of the commission. So if by default of the owner, that if the owner defaults, then they still owe the commission. That's another chunk in there that really ties down the owner to say, you are going to definitely pay me a commission on this if I bring you a seller and we're under contract, or a buyer, we're under contract. Okay. Construction. To the maximum extent permitted by applicable law, this agreement shall be construed as limiting applicable provisions of law relating to when commissions are earned or payable. In the event of any express agreement between any provisions of this agreement and the requirements of applicable law, the applicable provision of this agreement shall be deemed as modified to the minimum extent necessary to ensure compliance with applicable law. So if any part of this agreement, if it goes against an applicable law, the law would prevail, but only to the extent that the law would come in first, and then this agreement would come in second for anything that it doesn't cover. All right, fixtures and personal property. Fixtures and personal property for the purpose of this agreement. Fixtures shall mean property attached affixed to the premises. Owner agrees that all existing fixtures on the premises, personal property specified herein, and means to operate fixtures, i.e. remote controls, shall convey in the sale or rental, including the following: built-in appliances, ceiling fans and remotes, central vacuum hose and attachments, draperies, other window coverings, fireplace equipment, affixed fireplace equipment. So that means like the poker and the brush and that kind of stuff, those are not affixed. Floor coverings, affixed. Back to that fireplace equipment though. How about the grate that's inside the fireplace?
It's not affixed.
It's not affixed. Unless it's attached, that is not part of the fireplace. So, and I have had and I've heard of several disagreements where the buyer moves in and they are very upset because the grate's gone out of the fireplace. Well, according to the contract, that is not a piece that is supposed to stay. So if that's something that is material to your buyer, make sure you're discussing that and putting that in writing in the contract so that they know. Freestanding range and ovens, garage door openers and remotes, light fixtures that can be, that's chandeliers, that's all light fixtures in the house, those all stay. Mailbox, so if that mailbox keys, or if you have a fancy mailbox out front, that's going to be affixed, that's going to have to stay. Media antennas and satellite dishes, if they are affixed. If they are not affixed, they can be taken. Outdoor fountains and lighting, outdoor landscaping, i.e. shrubbery, trees, and unpotted plants. Unpotted plants. If they're in pots, those are not affixed and those can be taken. Shutters and awnings, smart home devices, access to which shall be transferred, i.e. video doorbell, automated thermostats. Speakers, flush mounted speakers. If they're externally mounted speakers, the speakers themselves don't have to stay, but if the mount is attached, the mount would have to stay, much like the TVs. Storage sheds, storm windows and doors, stoves, gas log, pellet, wood burning, trimmers, affixed timers, towel, curtain, and drapery rods, wall-mounted TV brackets and hardware, not the TVs, water misting systems, and window and door screens and sunshades. If owned by the owner, the following items are also included in the sale. Affixed alternate power systems serving the premises, i.e. solar and solar panels, in-ground pool and spa tub equipment and covers, including any mechanical or other cleaning systems. So the creepy crawly in the pool, that does go with the property. Security and or fire systems or alarms, water purification systems, and water softeners. So the water softeners, if it is owned, those do convey. If they are not owned, if they are leased, then that's going to be something that you need to address outside of the contract there, or actually in the contract. You're going to want to address how you're handling it. Additional existing personal property which may be included in the sale if checked. Refrigerator, washer, dryer, if you want those in. The description, again, you need to describe what it is that you're wanting to have in there. So if it's a refrigerator, you're going to want to type in there the make and model, if you have the make and model of the refrigerator. If you don't have that, kind of your fail safe is whatever date it is that you were there, as seen in the property on that date.
Or on MLS photos.
Or on MLS photos, if they happen to be in the MLS photos. And that's what I would always put in there is, as seen in the property on such and such date, the date that you and your client viewed the house and that they see it. So that's the one that they want. So they can't take that, Wolf refrigerator out and stick in a little white Frigidaire refrigerator in its place. Above ground spa, hot tub, including equipment, covers, and any mechanical or other cleaning systems. If your client wants those, you need to make sure you do that, or any other. If there are other things that you want to have and other personal property, you can put them in there. Really, your lender is not going to want to see a lot for personal property if you have a loan on it. So the lender's not going to want to see other stuff that's in there. So other personal property items, you might want to just include those in a separate bill of sale rather than putting them in your listing agreement or in your purchase contract, either one. Leased or not owned items. The following items are leased and not owned by the owner. So this gives your seller the chance to disclose what they own and what they have a lease on. So if these are leased items, they can mark that so that when you're putting this information in the MLS, what you're not going to be able to include in the sale. Other leased or lien items. You know what? Going back up to that washer, dryer, refrigerator, I confused myself there. I was looking at this like because it's worded just like it is on the purchase contract. We're in the ER. So this is your listing agreement. So this is your seller telling you what they are going to offer. So that's your seller's chance to give you the verbiage as to what they are going to offer in there. As far as if they are going to take out the Wolf refrigerator, you can put in, and they're going to do something else. You can explain what the difference is going to be in there.
Another thing, Todd, that I'm trying to do now, and that is, how sometimes the buyer will put in, like, let's say you excluded the washer and dryer from a listing, but they put it in. We're not seeing that as much now because of, the market, but
Right.
where they'll throw in the washer and dryer, or the seller didn't want to include the refrigerator, but they'll throw it in there. They'll exit on the purchase contract. I'm now starting to have the seller initial right next to those things, because if you've ever had a situation where, the seller says, I told you I didn't want the washer and dryer included, but they signed it anyway, and the next thing you know, they're expecting you to replace their washer, those kind of things. It's really nice to have them initial right next to it, so that you can, they've confirmed that, yes, they're willing to take this contract and give up the washer and dryer.
Yeah, that's a good fail-safe, Patty. That's really a good practice, I think, just to protect your client and yourself on that they do understand that, yes, they are part of the purchase. That's a really good fail-safe. All right, other lease or lien items not included in the sale, fixtures not included in the sale or rental. So you can state what things there. So if they want to say that, the chandelier is not going to convey, or the drapes in the living room are not going to convey, you could put that in here. And if they put it in here, then you need to make sure that you're transferring this information over into the MLS so that you know what they are offering. But really, if they don't want chandeliers or things like that to convey with the house, the safest thing to do is tell them, then we need to get these removed before I put this active on the market. I don't want buyers to see it and fall in love with it, and that's the reason they want to buy the house, and then they discover they can't have it. So I always tell my client, make sure if that's something that's not going to be included, let's get it removed now, so that it's not going to be a temptation from a buyer to make that an agreement as part of the sale. Agency, owner representation. The broker shall represent owner in any resulting transaction during the term of this agreement, except as specified in section 4, unless otherwise agreed. Broker acts as owner's agent only and has the duties of loyalty, obedience, disclosure, confidentiality, and accounting, fiduciary duties, as well as other duties imposed by the Arizona Department of Real Estate. Owner acknowledges that the broker may show prospective buyers the premises, and this shall not constitute a conflict of interest. So that gives you the authority to bring buyers in and actually act as, because this is, remember guys, this listing belongs to the broker. I know that, as an agent, you're signing this ER agreement, but the broker is also signing in this, and the broker is who this belongs to. So this is authorizing the broker to have other buyers come in represented by other agents and under his employ, to be able to bring them into your property. So you could have a dual agency. That's authorizing a dual agency.
What does it mean, any resulting transaction?
In any resulting transaction. So whether, I think what they're referring to there, whether it's the transaction, whether it's a sale, or whether it's a rental, or or if it is, right, or both sides. Or this is probably a piece that you'd have to get clarified. If there's litigation that happens, you're still their agent regarding. You're not going to be their sole representation if there's litigation or mediation or anything like that. But you are still going to be their broker for any transaction resulting from this. Conduct of brokers, regardless of whom they represent, a broker has the obligation to treat all parties to a transaction fairly, disclose in writing all facts known to the licensee that may materially and adversely affect the consideration to be paid for by the premises, and 3, disclose that the owner or buyer may be unable to perform. Realtors are further obligated by the National Association of Realtors Code of Ethics to treat all parties honestly. That's a big piece right there, guys, that you understand, is that is your obligation. If you know of something that is a material fact of this property and your seller says, I'm not going to disclose it, you have to. And that's telling that seller right there, I have to disclose things if I know about them. Even if you don't, I have to disclose them. That's part of our code of conduct, and that's part of our ethics, is that we have to treat people fairly and truthfully and disclose anything that may be a problem down the line. Limited representation. A limited agency may occur when a broker procures a buyer for the premises. In this situation, the same real estate company may represent the owner's interest and the buyer's interest, but not to the detriment of the other party. Broker can legally represent both parties with the knowledge of the prior written consent of both parties. So again, that's just authorizing the fact that we might have to do a limited representation if we have two agents or one agent representing both parties. What broker cannot disclose to clients under limited representation? Confidential information the broker may know about a client without the client's express consent. 2, the price or terms the owner will take other than the price without permission of the owner. 3, the price or terms the buyer is willing to pay without permission of the buyer. 4, is a recommended or suggested price or terms of the buyer should offer. And 5, a recommended or suggested price or terms the owner should counter with or accept. So those are things, if you're acting in a limited representation, you cannot disclose those things back and forth between the buyer and the seller. That's what really makes it limited, and that's what makes it really hard. And in my mind, it's what makes it impossible for one agent to represent both parties in a transaction fairly. Because as an agent, my obligation for a seller is to get you the most money I can for the house. And as for a buyer, my obligation is to get you this house at the best price possible. If you're representing both parties, how can you possibly do that? In my mind, you can't. So that's why, in my mind, I don't like doing dual representation. If my brokerage does dual representation, that's something completely different, because the two agents can have separate knowledge and the two agents can do their fiduciary duties separately. But I don't personally believe that one agent can perform fiduciary duties for both buyer and seller. That's a personal thing. It's legal in this state, it's legal to do, but my personal feeling is that it is not possible to represent both parties fairly. So that's up to you. So what would I do in that case? If it were me and I had a buyer that wanted to buy a listing that I was representing, I would bring on another agent from my office and have them be the buyer's agent and collect a referral fee from them. That would be the way that I would go about it. But that's how you conduct your business is completely up to you. Broker authority. Broker's role. Broker is not responsible for the custody or condition of the premises or its management except under separate contract, upkeep, or repair. So as the broker, you are not responsible to go over and make sure that everything is kept up, and it's really not our responsibility to go over and sweep off the walk and all those kind of things. Even though we do those kind of things as an agent, we go over and make sure that the place is kept nice and pretty, but it's not our responsibility. So the owner cannot hold us to that unless you have a separate contract that states that that's what your role is. Advertising. Owner agrees to not advertise or market the premises in any manner without the prior written permission of the broker. So if they are signing this, that means that they are not going to go out and create Facebook posts on their own. They're not going to put a for sale by owner sign in the yard or post something in the newspaper on their own. Everything has to be run through the broker. You are their advertising person. So it's always great. I love it when owners want to help out with marketing, but all of that needs to be run through you and run through the brokerage first before they do it, so that we can make sure everything is done in compliance. Multiple listing service. Broker is authorized to provide any and all information regarding the premises to any MLS of which the broker is participant, and to publish and disseminate such information in print or electronic form to MLS participants and to the general public, including dissemination of the information through internet data exchanges and virtual office websites. Broker is authorized to report the sale or rental of the premises and its price, terms, and financing for dissemination through the MLS to MLS participants and the general public. So that is authorizing us to post in the MLS when it gets sold and the amount and the terms and everything. The same thing for like Monsoon, so that the terms and everything can be posted in there. All terms of the transaction, including sales price and financing, if applicable, will be provided to the MLS and may be provided to the MLS even if the premises is not listed in the MLS. So even if they don't want to be put in the MLS, if they sign this, they are agreeing that you could actually put it into the MLS and put that information in there, even if it was never entered in. I don't know how you do it if it was never entered into the MLS. That's beyond me, but they're giving the authority to do so. Signs. The broker is or is not allowed to place a broker's for sale sign, for rent sign in conjunction with customary sign writer on the premises, and in the event of a sale, sold, or pending sign, or lease, or rented sign, at broker's discretion on the premises. Seller acknowledges that any public marketing of this premises will require submission to to the MLS within 1 business day. That is one of the big new pieces in there, guys, because that really lets people know that if we are going to do any marketing, and once we're putting this thing on the market, that we have to put it in the MLS within 1 business day. That's that clear cooperation piece right there. So this piece is new in the ER. When we were looking for things that are new, I wish we would have gotten a copy of this where all the red stuff, like we used to, you'd get a copy of it where it showed the red stuff is all the new things that were in there. But this kind of popped out before we even really got a chance to take a look at it. Photos and videos. The owner does or does not authorize broker to place photos, video, images, virtual tours on the premises and on the internet and other electronic and online media platforms. If authorized by owner to do so, such marketing will be performed at the sole discretion of the broker. Owner is cautioned to protect items in view. So that's lets the owner know if there are art pieces, things like that you don't want the public to see, make sure that you are protecting those from view in your media photos. But what's interesting about this is it says it does or does not authorize broker to place photos on and video tours on the premises on the internet. By virtue of the MLS rules, we have to have a single photo of the front of the house, at least, to be put into the MLS. So regardless of whether they do or do not, we have to put a single photo of the house in the MLS to satisfy the MLS rules. So it's a little piece that really doesn't apply. All right. Owner acknowledges that once images are placed on the internet, neither broker nor owner has control over who can view such images and what viewers may make of the images, or how long such images may remain available on the internet. Owner further assigns any rights in all images, if owned, to the broker and agree that such images are the property of the broker and that the broker may use the images for advertising, including post-sale and broker's business in the future. So pictures belong to the broker. Lockbox. Broker is or is not authorized to install a lockbox on the property. A lockbox key safe is designed to hold a key to the premises to permit access to the premises by broker, cooperating brokers, MLS participants, their authorized licensees and representatives, authorized inspectors, and prospective buyers. Brokers, cooperating brokers, MLS and association boards of realtors are not insurers against injury, theft, loss, or vandalism or damage attributed to the use of a lockbox/key safe. If premises is rented, owner must comply with providing proper notice to tenants pursuant to Arizona law. So if they do require a lock, or if they do authorize a lockbox on the property, this is just saying that as a real estate agent, as the brokerage, we are not responsible if there is loss, theft, injury, or vandalism based on somebody breaking into the lockbox or using the lockbox to gain entry into the property. Offers. Broker is or is not authorized to disclose the existence of offers, which includes the sales price and terms and sale or other rent price and terms of lease of the premises. This again is another new piece that they put in there. So this right here, you've got written authorization from the seller, whether or not you can disclose price and terms to other potential buyers. So if you're trying to drive up your price point, there's, some people were like, no, I don't want you to tell them if we get another offer. And then some people were like, well, yeah, I want you to tell them what we have so that they can, get a higher price in there. So this just gives you the authority to do that or not.
What do you think is best
If the seller does not care whether you disclose or not, I don't know. Personally, it depends on the market. I think in the current market that we have, I think it is an advantage to let the other buyers know what the prices are. That way they if that's what you're, and even if your seller, if they say they don't care, I would say as an agent in this market, I would want to let the other buyers know what the offer I have is so that they can come in higher and I can try to get a higher or better terms.
So if you check you can do the pass run.
Yep.
Just depending on
Yep. Yeah. So if they say that if we are authorized, they say, I don't really care, then mark the box is. It doesn't mean I'm always going to do it, but if they're giving me the authority to do it, if I want, if we decide we want to. Subsequent purchase or lease offers. Broker acknowledges that the owner has the right to accept subsequent offers until the close of escrow in the case of a sale or until occupancy by tenant in the case of a rental. Owner understands that any subsequent offers accepted by the owner must be backup offers, namely contingent on the cancellation or other nullification of any contracts arising from or acceptance of earlier offers. So they're acknowledging that we can accept backup offers right there. So it's not even giving them a choice. They're just saying we're going to be able to accept backup offers. But it's what's funny is it says buyer acknowledges they have the right to accept subsequent offers. And then it's down here, it says, well, do you want to accept backup offers? Do you want to withhold verbal offers? Or do you want to withhold all offers once the owner accepts purchase contract? So they still have the right to say, you know what, once we get an offer, I don't want to see anything else. That's fine. You can still collect the offers and keep them, but you don't have to present them to your client if they've just said they want to withhold offers. And maybe they don't want to hear verbal offers. I don't really care what somebody says they're going to offer. I only want to see it in writing before you bring it to me. So it just depends on what the seller or landlord wants. Broker will change or maintain the correct MLS listing status in accordance with MLS rules and regulations and any associated policies. So if a seller is saying, well, I know we're under contract, but I want you to keep it as active so I can get more contracts. I can't do that. That's against MLS rules and regulations. So even though they're instructing you to do it, this is telling them, no, I've got to follow the MLS rules and regulations. Cancellation. Broker reserves the right to cancel this agreement unilaterally for cause, which shall include, but not limited to, broker's good faith belief that any service requested of broker or any action undertaken by anyone other than the broker is or could be determined to be in violation of any applicable law. So the broker can cancel for cause. And that cause would be that they think that, there's might be breaking of a law. Premises access. Owner shall provide access of the premises at reasonable times upon reasonable notice to allow for showing the premises to prospective buyers and cooperating brokers. Reasonable notice is, again, highly subjectable, but there really isn't a set time that they can put in. So reasonable notice. Security insurance, showings, audio, and video. Broker is not responsible for loss or damage to personal or real property or person, whether attributable to the use of the key, safe, lockbox, a showing of the premises, or otherwise. Third parties, including but not limited to appraisers, inspectors, brokers, and prospective buyers may have access to and take videos and photographs of the interior of the premises. Owner agrees to 1, take reasonable precautions to safeguard and protect valuables that might be accessible during showings of the premises, and 2, obtain insurance to protect against these risks. Broker does not maintain insurance for the owner's behalf. Persons visiting the premises may not be aware that they could be recorded by audio or visual devices installed by owner, such as nanny cams or security cameras. Owner is advised to post notice disclosing the existing of security devices on the premises, if any. So really, if you have security cameras or nanny cams, things like that on the property, they're saying that you should disclose that, the owner should disclose that, so that the buyer or potential buyer or whoever would know that they were actually being on camera. But they're saying that they are advised to. It doesn't say that they have to. So again, if the owner is like, I don't want you to tell them, they should just behave themselves at all times, whether or not they know they're on camera. We're telling them they should disclose.
I think legally, you can't really film somebody, can you?
Well, if it's in your own home, you should have no, you really have no right to privacy in someone else's home.
Okay.
So, I mean, if they have cameras in the bathroom, it's something like that. I think, yeah, that's a personal privacy issue. But throughout the home, things like that, I think you should always expect that you're going to be on camera. And whenever you're viewing a home, you should let your clients always know that if you're in a home, you should just expect that they have security cameras and that you could be recorded at all times.
Watch what you say.
Yeah, just watch what you say. Especially watch what you say. Especially if you're really interested in the house. You don't want to give too much away about, oh my God, this is beautiful. I'd give anything to have this house. So you're giving away your advantage right there if you're doing it. Adverse information. Owner is to disclose to broker all materials, latent defects, and information concerning the premises known to owner, including all material information relating to 1, connection to a public sewer or septic system or sanitation system, 2, the existing of any tax judgment or any other type of lien, 3, the present infestation or treatment for wood destroying pets and organisms. And 4, past or present repair of the premises for damage resulting from wood destroying pests or organisms. During the term of this agreement, owner agrees to continue disclosing to broker all additional information of the type required by the preceding sentence promptly after owner becomes aware of any such information by updating the seller's property disclosure statement, residential lease owner's policy statement, or other written notice. So if you have an investor who doesn't want to fill out SPUDs, if they've signed this listing agreement and they don't make any exceptions to this thing, they're saying right here that they are going to fill out SPUDs and they're going to keep you updated if anything happens to the property. Disclosures. Owner shall provide broker with accurate information about the premises. Owner acknowledges that the Arizona law requires owner to disclose material, important facts about the premises, even if owner is not asked by the buyer or a real estate agent. The owner agrees to provide the following disclosures if applicable. An affidavit of disclosure. If the premise is located in an unincorporated area of the county and 5 or fewer parcels other than the subdivided property are being transferred, owner shall deliver a completed affidavit of disclosure in the form of required by law to the buyer within 5 days after the purchase contract acceptance. And we've had this discussion before, what an affidavit of disclosure is, and I'm not going to get into that right now, but really it's almost like a public report. It's like a miniature public report. Disclosure of lead-based paint and lead-based paint hazards, sale or rental. If the premises structure was built before 78, federal law requires that the owner provide the buyer or tenant with a lead-based paint disclosure form. Domestic well water addendum, seller's property disclosure statement. If the premises is served by a domestic well water, owner shall deliver a completed domestic well water addendum to the buyer within 3 days of the contract acceptance. You're seeing a lot of this stuff is repeated here as it was in the purchase contract. And it's designed that way. If you drill it into somebody's head enough, they might actually remember. Foreign Investment in Real Estate Property Act certification. The Foreign Investment in Real Property Act, FIRPTA, is applicable if owner is a non-resident alien, individual, foreign corporation, foreign partnership, foreign trust, or foreign estate, foreign person. Owner agrees to complete, sign, and deliver to the escrow company a certificate indicating whether owner is a foreign person. FIRPTA requires that a foreign seller may have federal income taxes up to 15% of the purchase price withheld unless an exception applies. Owner is responsible for obtaining independent legal and tax advice. And we're not going to get into FIRPTA stuff today. Just explains that if they are a foreign person, they need to disclose it. HOA condominium planned community addendum. If the premises is in a residential HOA condominium or planned unit development, owner shall complete and return broker page 1 of the HOA addendum. Okay, again, this is I think it's new within this form, is that they are saying right now that the seller has to complete page 1 so that you can put it into the MLS, because MLS rules now state that we have to have, if it's in an HOA, we have to have that HOA document in the MLS. Insurance claims history. Owner shall deliver to buyer a written 5-year insurance claims history regarding the premises, or a claims history for the length of time owner has owned the premises of less than 5 years from owner's insurance company or an insurance support organization or consumer reporting agency. If unavailable from these sources, the owner within 5 days after purchase of contract acceptance. So again, that's if you have investors that are saying we're not doing insurance claims history, we haven't had insurance on it or whatever. If they haven't had insurance on it, that last line in there would come into place. If unavailable from these sources, the owner would then have to state that they haven't had any claims, and that their statement would be what you would supply as the claims history. Residential lease agreement. If the premise is to be sold while subject to a lease, owner shall provide a copy of the lease to the broker. Residential lease owner's property disclosure statement. The RLAPIDS, I don't even know how to say that one, it's not SPUDS, is designed to protect the owner by disclosing pertinent information regarding the premises. And the SPUDS are designed to protect the owner. The owner shall complete and return the SPUDS to the broker. Solar lease addendum. If the solar, I'm not even going to say that word, panel system has been installed on the premises that is subject to a lease or unpaid loan, owner shall complete and return the solar lease assumption addendum to the broker as well. So if they have a solar lease, they have to fill out that addendum and send it and get it back to you as well. Recommendations. Man, we're at 2:00 already. We didn't get to anything else today. Recommendations. If the broker recommends the builder, contractor, escrow company, title company, pest control services, appraiser, lender, home inspection company, or home warranty company, or any other persons or entity to the owner for any purpose, such recommendations shall be independently investigated and evaluated by the owner, who hereby acknowledge that any decision to enter any contractual arrangement with such person or entity by broker will be based solely upon such independent investigation and evaluation. Owner understands that said contractual arrangement may result in compensation or fee to broker. Owner agrees that it will not allow mechanics liens to be recorded against the premises during the terms of this agreement or at any other time during the close of escrow. So that just says that if we recommend people to them, that they need to do their own investigations about those. Indemnification. Owner hereby expressly releases, holds harmless, and indemnifies broker and all boards or associations of Realtor, MLS, and all other brokers from any and all liability and responsibility regarding damage or loss arising from any misrepresentation or breach of warranty by owner in this agreement. Any incorrect information supplied by owner and any facts concerning the premises not disclosed or withheld by owners, including without limitation any facts known to owner relating to adverse information or latent defects. So that is protecting you as the agent and us as the broker, that if they withhold or if they don't tell us certain information, that it protects us. All right, guys, we're at 2:05. Do we want to continue, or how do we want to do this?
Is there anything else new on the rest of this?
I don't think there really is anything else new in this. The alternative dispute resolution is the same as it was before. Attorney fees and costs is the same as it was before. I think we went through really the things that were the pieces that were new. Yeah, I think everything else in here is pretty much the same, and we're at the end here. So yeah, we can finish that up because there really isn't anything else in there. Everything else is the way it was before. So we've covered all the new stuff that was in the ER form.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
If we're doing a listing just for one buyer, like we're gonna go to, I have a buyer for a house that's not listed. I don't know that they want me to list it, and probably they don't at this point. But if I'm gonna go for one buyer, is that the form that I use with the sellers? Like,
Yeah, you can do a one-party agreement.
but is that the form, and that's the form?
Yeah, you just use
Okay.
this agreement, and then in the extra terms right there, this agreement is only good for this buyer. You can put the person's name in there, so it would be as one-party agreement, so that it was, if you have one particular buyer.
And
that
does
you
it
would-
still
you would
have
have
to go in the MLS?
Technically it should. Yeah, you should record, according to the MLS rules and laws, you should record everything in the MLS to keep accurate records of sales.
Okay.
Just go in and under contract the same day.
Yeah, you would put it in and immediately from active, you would switch it over to UCB or closed or whatever, how you wanted to do it at that point. Some people, I mean, the minute you get this signed, you're supposed to within 24 hours put it into the MLS. And here's a big piece that you guys really everybody needs to understand is that when this contract is signed, regardless of what your date says, where is that? Regardless of what your date says as to when this thing starts, when this thing starts, the date that your client signs this, our broker has to review this within 10 days. So according to our policies, you have to enter this into SkySlope within 24 hours of getting it signed by the seller. Yeah, by the seller. So once you have a signed contract, you have 24 hours to get it into the MLS or get into SkySlope so that Jamie can then review it and make sure that it gets reviewed within that 10-day period. If you don't, that's why you get those little nasty grants. It doesn't have to be in the MLS within 24 hours, but it has to be in SkySlope once you get this signed. Any questions on that? All right. A couple of us are left on here. Good. Then that's all I have for today, guys. So next week we will pick back up and we'll get back more into the addendums because we got sidetracked on this ER form, but I think it was important to get this ER form one done since we've got new terminology that was in it. So next week we'll get back into the rest of the addendums and finish the addendums class off.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.